Welcome back to Brandon's Garages. So we are going to be doing something special today. We are taking the stock intake and we are going to put on this one. And this is basically the same color as our calipers that I've painted. And we're going to take it and we're going to install this onto here. Now, I've never done this before, so this is news to me, but from what it looks like so far, this has got to come off, that bar's got to come off, the fuel line's got to disconnect, and there's a ton of connection tabs. I think you can take this off without pulling the intake. I think you can just disconnect the throttle bodies and pull it straight up and get it out of there. But we'll see. Because if you look at the stock intake, it's got bolt holes down here, and so down here. And so that's pretty much all that holds that on there. So hopefully this shouldn't be too bad. And I'm basically doing this install video so you guys can kind of get an idea of the process, so you can swap one for yourself. So anyway, so that's our intake. And it's all stock, it's just painted. And it's got clear on it. And it got the middle throttle bodies in black. So that's pretty much it. So stay tuned, we're gonna get this thing rocking and rolling. Alright, so step one is going to be taking these 4 bolts on each side to get these arms off. And I got to figure out what we're going to do with that fuel line here in a second. That's just kind of get you started. I usually like to take these and I loosen by hand and then hit with the impact after. So you run less risk of trying to strip anything. And I'll just take those and okay, there's 2. Okay, now there is a connector underneath here. And I'll have to figure out what's holding it on that other side. And I'll probably use one of those prod tools to get that piece under here. You're going to take one of your prod tools, pop that off, and this pops out from the side. So you'll hit it up here with your hands, it'll knock it loose, and then this comes off. The next side is going to be a little bit more difficult, mainly because there's a fuel line on there, so I got to figure out what we're going to do about that. Alright, so this side is the same as the other, except you push down on these pins, and then the fuel rail will pop out. So they're just pushed in, and then there's another piece on the bottom, and so you're going to take your top 4 off same way, push those little pins, and then you should have that loose. Like I said, always loosen first and then hit it with the speed ratchet. It's still intact, but it's a little, they get a little damaged. Next, I'm going to disconnect the throttle bodies. I just popped this one off. Disconnect the other one. I'm going to pull these couplers off. I think I can get this out without pulling the intake. If I can just get those out of the way and popped out of the way, because this could come up. So I'm hoping it's not too much interference and I keep throttle bodies on, because that's going to be a big pain in the butt. Unless there's something underneath that I'm not aware of that has to come loose. I know there's one connector down the bottom side over there, but I don't think there's anything else. So as long as I got everything unhooked from the manifold, it should be good. So we got connectors here. These got to come off. You can disconnect the fuel line in two places. Here, we can do it here. It's got a quick disconnect there as well. I'm gonna favor doing it up here just because it's easier to access. It's probably easier for my tool. So I'm probably gonna disconnect here, keep this on, and I'll just take this off with the intake and then swap it over. But these pieces got to come off. Now this may interfere a little bit with my bolts, and if it does, then I'll take it off. But for now, I'm just going to disconnect from here. So basically this piece pulls off, you slide your coupler. It's a 3/8 coupler. Slide that in and you push in and it just pops loose, and you're probably going to get fuel. So I set some towels underneath. But anyways, I'm going to get these connectors disconnected and these couplers, which and then we'll kind of go from there. Here's we got our ones up here. So these are on these harnesses, so these are going to have to come loose. Just pull back the red tab. They push right. Center of the thumb. The first time they're always kind of a pain, after that they're easy. You gotta be real careful because these are fragile. So you can see it already trying to pull away. So you have to be really careful with it. Sometimes I push in a little bit, kind of unlock it. Okay, so move. Okay, need both hands so we get off this. This bottom one, this will pop off. This mounts underneath this intake. You gotta be careful with it. You'll break that connector pretty easily, which I did. I don't think I broke it. I think it just slid off. It's got a little sliding mechanism. I have to see when I pull it off of there. I can kind of feel it. And so you've got your disconnect for your throttle body here. That one, and then you got your one over there. So those are disconnected. These top two are disconnected. Now I'm going to take the side ones. And actually I already had this loosened, so you don't have to loosen that, but I had mine loosened. That just creates a little bit more room, and I'll put that back on there when we're in there. But anyway, so these are all going to come loose. This is going to come loose from here. This bolt, it's got a lock point back here. Those are all going to pop with your pliers. In there, and that should give you enough room to get to these intake bolts there. And same thing on this side. So once I disconnect, doesn't seem too bad, at least so far. In theory, everything's disconnected unless I'm missing something, which I could be, but so it's pretty straightforward right now. So all right, so stay tuned. So we're going to disconnect the fuel line here. I'm not sure if it's better to do it here or down here, but I'm going to do it up here just because it's easier to get to. It's easier to get to in the tool. But basically this is popped in. You pop these tabs off. It pulls off the protection lock. And then from there, it should be, I'm going to cover it because I don't know how high this pressure. I know direct injection is a lot higher. And I don't know how much the fuel system's relieved right now. So I'm going to try to cover it. And I'm going to put this down real quick. Let's see if we can get it. But I bought this tool from AutoZone basically, and it just locks together two pieces and they slide in, you push in, and that should allow it to disconnect. So let's see if that's actually the case. It's gonna be hard to see because I gotta cover it in case it sprays. And always have a fire extinguisher handy, obviously. Used tools to this style. You're supposed to relieve the pressure. One way you can relieve the pressure is pull the fuel pump fuse and let it run out. I've historically just let it sit for a while, and usually it kind of decompresses on its own. But I'm not sure with this direct injection, so we're about to find out how much this is going to spray. It should fill 4 clicks. There's like 4 tabs in there that kind of make this line connect, and so those, you have to pry those loose, and that allows it to separate. So there it goes, it separated. So that was pretty easy. Which actually, that makes me wonder, is that even fuel line or is that EGR? I'm thinking that might actually be EGR and not fuel line, actually. All these are like, this is basically a bracket for your O2 sensor. All these are on like a bracket, so I'm just going to take this bracket loose. These are all 10 millimeters. And then I'll have to start prying these, popping these off and getting them out of the way. And that should give us access to the actual intake manifold. Okay, so then that gives us these little pry tabs. Now these are plastic, so be really careful with them. I actually have like a plastic pry tool I'm going to try with first. It may not give me enough force, but it's less likely to break anything just for this. It's probably a softer plastic than that is, so I'm going to go down there and try to just wiggle these out with this little plastic tool. All this stuff's at like AutoZone and whatnot. I don't think there's going to be enough force with this thing. This is more like interior kind of stuff. So let's switch to the big one. I would exercise a lot of caution. You don't want to break this tab on this intake. Another option, if you really don't want to do any of it, is just buy more tabs and just, they're basically a wire tie at the top, and you can just cut them. Now let's do gentle prying. Just can't get too excited about it. Kind of fill them each little basic thread. You'll feel it kind of pop up. And just keep wiggling, and then it comes off eventually. You see that one's intact, but they're pretty. I mean, they're tough, but if you go like ape wild on it, you're gonna break it. But as long as you're just like relatively reasonably not a crazy person, you should be okay. I don't know how much you can see of this, but that's basically where I'm working at. Just trying to get this tab underneath. They make a better tool than this one. This one's actually designed for interior pieces, so it's not as thin as it could be. I've had one that was thinner. This is all I pick up. I left it on my buddy David's. I think he's got it right now, so anyways, just go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth until it's off. And so I'm gonna get that one off, and then this one up here on this side should be ready to start getting to the bolts. So anyway, stay tuned. Take bolts, except for that very back one, which is kind of pain to see, are exposed on this side. And so then that's the only thing holding it on. There was a tab here. You can unbolt it or you can pop it off. It's this one. Actually, wait, where was it? This is that one right there. And it pops into there. So we're pretty much disconnected. I think it's probably better off, honestly, now after doing this, probably pulling this off from there and just completely separating it, but it's not a big deal. It doesn't really matter, I don't think. All right, so now we're going to switch to the other side, and theoretically we just got to get these bolts off now and then pop that other ones off, and this should pull out. I'm going to keep the bolts inside the motor. So over here on this side, just need a ratchet wrench. This should release the main little area. I've already popped this one off down here. Some little tabs. And then just loosen this, and this should pull this out of the way. I think there's a couple that are popped on there and there. I can already tell the back intake bolt on this side is already going to be, it's going to be a problem. And probably like a universal situation's my guess. Okay, alright, so we'll get that off. Move that kind of out of the way. This usually pushes in and pulls out. These are little lock tabs, so we're going to pop that off here. Okay. It's easy peasy. See how easy that was? So it just comes off super easy. Alright, and then this one. Probably should be more careful with that next time, but anyways. Alright, so there I'm going to pop these loose, that one loose, and it should have access to the bolts, and we should be almost there. Pop loose, and then as you can see, let's turn my light on. That intake bolt in the back is going to be a booger bear, and also it looks like I got maybe a mounting tab back here in the very back of the intake. That's going to pop off, and I got to check the other side. And there's a connector. I don't think that's actually on the intake though. No. Okay, so then that's it, and we're ready to unbolt. And there's access to all your bolts. So I'm going to go down, just use a long extension and 10mm. And I'm going to leave them in there. I'm just going to loosen them. They're just not connected anymore. There's not a lot of torque on them. Okay, now I'm going to have to examine the last one. That one's a little bit hidden, so I think we're going to use a universal or something, so stay tuned. Bolts, use a universal, 10mm. You can kind of get to it, I'll just do it by hand. And it's easy once you do that. And all the ones on this side will be out. The big thing is going to be when you lift this up, having someone with you, so make sure those bolts stay secure. I don't want anything from dropping into the intake. Some will disconnect. Pretty sure we're all the way out there. So that's all that side. Not too bad. Better than I was expecting. So over here, same process. The only one that's hard to get to is that back one, which looks like it's gonna be universal too. There's 5 total. GM made these little recesses in the intake almost that makes you get to them easy. Okay, so GM engineers are smart. I guarantee Ferrari ones would not have done this because they don't give a shit probably about people taking it apart. But all these have incest areas to get straight shots. So I just got to get that back one. It'll be the same process as I showed you on the other side. Looks like, I mean, pretty much slam dunk, so we don't show that. So then they'll all be loosened, and then we can pick this intake up and get it off. Nice. Big bucks, no whammies. We're going to try to lift this intake out. Everything should be loose. This is going to come with it. Oh. Something snagging on it. You see that? Something grabbing?
Something back here. In the back.
What was it, Beth?
This thing back there?
No, this should be a wire or something. There's something grabbing to it. Something stuck on it somewhere. I need you to look whenever I lift it. Something's holding it. Just like, go to the other side and go look where the light's at. Something hooked to it.
It's this thing down here. Oh shoot.
No, that's not it. It's unhooked.
Yeah.
There's something grabbing it. You should be able to see it. Something's hooked to it.
Oh, this thing on the bottom. Yeah. It's this thing on the bottom down here.
What are you talking about?
Put your hand down where my hand is.
All right, move. All right, move.
Right
Move. I can't have these bolts fall. Move. Shit. What is it exactly?
It's a cord. You might need to get underneath it, maybe.
Give me this, do another take of this. Oh, there's a, if you do the throttle bodies on the car, it's probably better to do them with off. There's a harness underneath this throttle body. I actually had to snip it, unfortunately. But she's gonna come off now. One of the bolts is threaded now. Okay, here. You got it? Mm-hmm. All right, hand me some of those towels. And I do want to show the cylinder heads here. Look how nice these runners are. Good Lord. I mean, that is beautiful. The other one's ready to go on, but I'll wait. I want to paint the throttle bodies. Just make sure my foot hits. Alright, the intake's assembled. I've got throttle bodies on it. I can go ahead and remove all of our protection for the intake runners. But let's just look at them. Oh man, that looks so good on the CNC side. For each valve, it's just very, very smooth. Okay, so now we're gonna I recommend having somebody help you. So look, I got Beth's gonna help me kind of hand this intake over to you while you sit in the trunk, and then we're going to sit it on there. Okay, and I've got the bolts already in the intake, so we'll see if that works or not. I don't know yet, but we're going to find out. All right, let's go. A little higher. Okay. Alright, so they sit down okay. Okay, it seems pretty flush, and now we're gonna just try to start our bolts. Make sure there's nothing, no movement. It feels pretty flush there, so all right, so I'm gonna get started on trying to start some bolts. So I just hand tightened them up. I don't have the torque sequence for this intake at the time of this filming. It's not available to me. I haven't been able to find it anywhere. But that being said, the LT2 intake does an inside out. So you start in the center, you work your way kind of out to the peripheral with your torque sequence. So I'm going to do that. I know that my torque wrench that I used to loosen these was that Impact that has less than 40 foot-pounds. So I know it's less than 40. My guess is around in the 20-something range. But I will post on this video because I'll obtain the actual torque specs here soon. Right now I'm doing these up by hand, and I'll go back later and tighten to the proper torque specs once I get that figured out. But I'm going to start here, 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 and then kind of work my way to the outside. Kind of like they do in the LT2 intake. So that's what all you're going to have to do is just basically tighten to the torque specs listed on here and start at these center ones. I'm going to go cross on these center and then go towards the outside. And I'll do a little bit at a time just to not pinch anything. And there's the center ones on each side. And those ones I'm hitting first because there's 5 10 total, so I'm hitting the third one up. And then I'll go to the inside on this side. And I'm using a shorty ratchet, just make sure I don't over torque these. Last thing you want to do is pop one of these things. And I'm going to go a light torque sequence with all of them and then go back a second hand as well. Okay, and now we're going to do a second round, a little bit tighter, and I'm going to look real quick and see the Stingray torque facts, and we'll kind of just probably use that for now. Pounds. This is the total for the intake. This being a little bit larger and heavier, and with the vibration of this engine, I'm going to go what feels like a little bit more than that. For now. And like I said, with each round, I'm just working my way back outwards. I'm doing kind of a cross pattern. The back one's going to require universal to get fully tight on that side. Okay, we hit him one more round. Let's make sure that intake seal is compressed slowly. be really hard with this shorty to strip anything. Okay, that should do it. Now, in order to take this off from the top, we had to cut one of these connectors below the throttle body if you want to keep the throttle bodies on. So I've got a wire tie to actually pull that back up to the same connector. And it's at the base of this throttle body through this bolt through here. So basically pull that harness up, plug it in, and then just wrap your wire tie. Everything else is going to be just back to like it was putting it on, just connecting all the sensors. Make sure you get your side hooked up. Make sure you get your fuel hooked up to here. These bolts are going to come off. And then you're going to put your front cables on, your throttle body connectors, and then your map sensors. And then from there, should be good to go. Pretty straightforward reinstall process. So I'm not going to show that just because it's the reverse of what we just did. If there's anything weird, I'll add that on there. But that's basically it. It's not really that bad, not that involved. And I'll have the official torque specs here soon. So, all right, stay tuned. Forward, getting it all back together. The only caveat is when you're doing the intake, this bar has to slide and kind of burr up against the intake going in. So in order to protect the paint on your new intake, slow a piece of rag down to allow it to glide through there without chipping it. So that's going to be the only thing that's going to be different from the uninstall process. So anyways, that's just a little FYI. Everything else has been relatively straightforward. All the hookups, nothing, no curveballs or anything like that so far.